All right, so we're diving into something today I think a lot of people wrestle with, and that's how to unlock your hidden potential. And to help us kind of unpack this, we're looking at some really interesting insights from Adam Grant.
Oh, yeah.
That organizational psychologist
Yeah.
who just seems to always have his finger on the pulse of what makes us tick.
He does. He does.
He had this amazing conversation with Jay Shetty, and it's full of those research-backed nuggets.
Right.
Where you're like, wait, I can actually apply this to my life.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that really struck me was Grant pushing back against this whole idea of good enough.
Oh, interesting.
Obviously, contentment is important, but he just makes this really compelling case that, real fulfillment, it comes from pushing ourselves.
Yeah.
It comes from, actively fighting against feeling stagnant.
Yeah, I can see how that would resonate with people. It's like we all have this kind of inner drive to evolve, right? To become better versions of ourselves. But then there's this whole comparison trap that we all fall into.
Yes.
And Grant had some really interesting things to say about that.
He did. He drew this really clear line between comparison and envy.
Okay.
Envy, that's the joy stealer, right? The bitter feeling of wanting what someone else has.
Yeah.
But comparison can actually be fuel for growth.
Okay. I'm intrigued. How do we turn comparison into a force for good instead of letting it kind of drag us down?
So think of it this way. You see someone who's achieved something amazing and, does it make you feel resentful or does it make you think, wow, if they can do it, maybe I can too? That's Grant's point, right? Instead of getting stuck in that envy, we can use those moments as inspiration.
So instead of focusing on what we lack, we look at their path as a learning opportunity.
Yes.
It almost becomes like a roadmap of sorts.
Exactly. And here's a powerful shift that Grant suggests. Compare yourself not to others, but to your past self.
Okay.
Imagine the you from 5 years ago saw you now.
Oh, wow.
Would they be blown away by your progress?
That's such a good way to frame it.
Right.
It helps us appreciate how far we've come.
Yeah.
But also sets the bar higher for our future self.
Exactly.
Now, another thing that really stood out to me was Grant's take on discomfort. He calls it a character skill, which I thought was such a bold statement.
It is bold, but when you think about it, we're wired to avoid discomfort, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But Grant's arguing that it's often the key to unlocking new levels of potential.
Interesting.
He actually shares this story about how he used to be terrified of public speaking.
Wait, Adam Grant was afraid of public speaking?
Yeah, the guy who's on stage all the time sharing his ideas with the world.
I would have never guessed that.
To overcome it, he used a technique called flooding.
Okay.
Which is basically he deliberately sought out the most uncomfortable speaking situations he could find.
Wow.
He knew that facing that fear head on was the fastest way to grow.
That's intense, but it clearly worked for him.
Right.
It really drives home the point that growth often requires us to push past our comfort zones.
It does, and it makes you wonder, how do we gauge how much discomfort is too much?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's something that Grant doesn't explicitly address, but it's something worth thinking about.
Yeah, definitely something to ponder. Now, another thing I found fascinating was his research on learning by doing. He says it's way more effective than just passively absorbing information.
Right.
And get this, he even suggests teaching what you're learning.
Yes.
To solidify your understanding.
He gives this example of language learners.
Okay.
They thrive by speaking from day one.
Oh, wow.
Even if they make mistakes, it's about putting that knowledge into practice immediately, not waiting till you feel like an expert.
I've heard that called the learn by teaching method.
Yes.
It forces you to really grasp the material.
Yeah.
But it also helps you uncover gaps in your knowledge.
Exactly.
It's like when you try to explain something to a friend.
Right.
If you can teach it, you truly know it.
And speaking of things that I think we can all relate to, let's talk about perfectionism.
Yeah.
Grant actually admitted to scoring low on a perfectionism test after writing a whole chapter about it.
The irony.
Right. We all struggle with this. How do we balance striving for excellence with letting go of the need for everything to be absolutely perfect?
Yeah. How does Grant suggest we kind of navigate that tension?
He has this really practical rule of thumb: aim for a 9 out of 10 for major projects, the things that really count.
Okay.
But for quicker, less formal stuff like social media posts, a 6 is fine.
Oh.
It's recognizing that not everything has to be a masterpiece.
Right. Kind of takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
But here's a hurdle I think a lot of people face, like that discomfort around sharing their work. We put so much of ourselves into it. It can feel really vulnerable to put it out there for other people to see.
Absolutely. Grant makes this brilliant distinction between self-promotion and idea promotion.
Oh.
Self-promotion is all about ego, seeking validation.
Yeah.
But promoting your ideas is about sharing something valuable, allowing others to benefit from your insights.
So it's almost like shifting from look at me to look at this. It might help you.
Exactly. He argues that hoarding potentially helpful knowledge can actually be detrimental.
Oh, interesting.
It's about finding that balance between humility and the responsibility to share what we've learned.
And sometimes we need a little help to see that balance.
Yes.
And that's where I think Grant's emphasis on coaching comes in. Do you have coach? Have you ever considered having a coach outside of like sports or traditional contexts?
It's something I've been thinking about more and more.
Yeah.
I think having someone who can offer guidance and perspective, who can help us see potential we might not see in ourselves, can be so valuable.
Absolutely. Now, here's something Grant's research revealed that really surprised me.
Okay.
Deliberate play can be just as important as deliberate practice.
Oh, so interesting.
He uses the example of Steph Curry.
Right.
Apparently, a good chunk of his basketball training involves playful elements. Like games, challenges, things that make the process enjoyable.
It makes sense, though. When we enjoy what we're doing, we're more likely to stick with it.
Totally.
Right? We're more likely to push ourselves further.
It's like finding that sweet spot between challenge and fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing about growth. Sometimes we need to shake things up a bit, bring in that element of playfulness to kind of reignite our passion.
Yeah.
And, push us forward.
Totally. It's like we get so focused on the how-to that we forget about the want-to.
And speaking of shaking things up, let's talk about Grant's idea of stepping back to move forward.
Okay.
It can be so hard to let go of something you've poured your time and energy into, even if it's not working anymore.
Oh, absolutely.
It's that classic sunk cost fallacy. We feel like we have to keep going because we've already invested so much.
Yeah.
But sometimes the most courageous thing we can do is admit when something isn't working and be willing to pivot.
It's like you're trying to climb a mountain, but the path you're on is blocked.
Yep.
And sometimes you have to backtrack and find a different route to reach the summit.
Exactly. And that can apply to anything: careers, relationships, creative projects. Grant argues that clinging to something that no longer serves us is actually holding us back from discovering new possibilities.
Right.
And reaching our full potential.
It's like we get stuck in a certain lane, even if it's not the right lane for us anymore.
Yes.
And changing lanes can feel scary, especially when we're worried about what other people will think.
That fear of judgment can be a major roadblock.
For sure.
But Grant suggests that it often stems more from our internal narrative than external expectations. We tell ourselves stories about who we are and what we're capable of.
Right.
And those stories can become self-fulfilling prophecies.
So how do we rewrite those stories? How do we break free from those limiting beliefs and embrace a more empowering narrative?
One way is to start paying attention to our self-talk.
Okay.
What are the stories we're telling ourselves about our limitations? Are they based on facts, or are they just echoes of, past experiences or societal expectations?
Right.
Once we identify those limiting beliefs, we can start challenging them.
Yeah.
And replacing them with more positive and empowering affirmations.
It's like we have the power to reprogram our minds for growth.
Yes.
But rewiring those thought patterns takes conscious effort.
It does, and it can be incredibly liberating.
Yeah.
It's about giving ourselves permission to evolve, to shed those old identities that no longer serve us, and step into our full potential. And that leads to another key point that Grant makes.
Okay.
There's no single path to success.
Oh, interesting.
He challenges this idea that there's one right way to do things.
Right.
One universal formula for achievement.
That's refreshing to hear.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off.
It does.
We don't have to follow someone else's blueprint.
Exactly.
We can find our own way.
Yes.
A path that aligns with our strengths and our values and our passions.
He even talks about his own experience with springboard diving as a teenager.
Oh, wow.
He says he had very little explosive power or grace, which is hilarious coming from Adam Grant.
Yeah, I love that.
But his coach helped him to set realistic goals and celebrate progress, even if it wasn't always perfect.
That's a great example of how we can apply this principle to any area of life. Instead of trying to fit ourselves into a predetermined mold,
Right.
we should embrace our unique quirks and imperfections.
Yes.
Because those are often the source of our greatest strengths and insights.
Exactly. And Grant argues that this ties into a larger theme of authenticity.
Okay.
It's not about trying to be someone you're not.
Right.
It's about owning your unique perspective and sharing it with the world.
Which can be scary.
It can be.
Putting yourself out there, risking judgment and rejection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But Grant says it's ultimately more fulfilling than playing it safe and hiding your true self.
Yeah.
He actually says that withholding our ideas and insights can be a form of selfishness.
Wow.
By sharing our unique gifts, we're contributing to a collective knowledge, helping others to learn and grow alongside us.
That's a really interesting way to think about it.
It is.
So true. But this brings up a question I know a lot of people wrestle with. Like, how do we know what to share? How do we figure out which ideas and insights are worth promoting?
Grant suggests starting with some self-reflection.
Okay.
What are you passionate about? What do you know more about than most people? What problems do you see in the world that you want to help solve?
Those are great prompts.
Yeah.
Once we've kind of identified our areas of expertise or passion, we can start thinking about how to share that knowledge in a way that feels authentic and impactful, whether it's through writing or speaking or mentoring, or even just having conversations with people who are interested in learning more.
And it's important to remember that we don't have to have all the answers.
Right.
Grant emphasizes being comfortable with uncertainty, admitting when you don't know something, and being willing to learn alongside others.
That reminds me of something you mentioned earlier about how expressing uncertainty can actually make experts seem more credible.
Yes.
It makes them more relatable and human.
It does, and that applies to all of us, not just experts.
Right.
When we're willing to be vulnerable to admit our limitations, it creates space for genuine connection and learning.
It's like we're saying, I don't have all the answers.
Right.
But I'm willing to explore them with you.
Exactly.
And that's what this whole deep dive is about, isn't it? Exploring ideas, challenging assumptions, and discovering hidden potential.
Yes.
One of my favorite quotes from Grant is, the person you're competing with is your past self, and the bar you're raising is for your future self.
I love that.
Yeah.
It shifts the focus from external validation to internal growth. From comparing ourselves to others to focusing on our own progress and evolution.
And it reminds us that growth is an ongoing journey, not a destination.
Yes.
We're constantly evolving, learning, and uncovering new layers of potential. But sometimes we need a little help along the way.
Absolutely.
Which brings us back to Grant's emphasis on coaching.
Yes. He talks about the value of having coaches in all areas of life, not just sports or performance-based fields.
It's something I think we often overlook, especially as adults.
Yeah.
We think we should have it all figured out. But having a coach can provide invaluable guidance, support, and accountability.
Absolutely.
Helping us to see our blind spots and push ourselves further than we might on our own.
It's like having a personal trainer for your growth and development.
Exactly.
Someone who can help you set goals, create a plan, and stay motivated along the way.
But finding the right coach can be tricky.
It can be.
What are some of the qualities we should look for when choosing someone to guide us on our journey?
Yeah. That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's like dating in a way.
It is.
You need to find someone you vibe with, who gets you and where you want to go.
Yeah. The most important thing is finding a coach you resonate with, someone you feel comfortable opening up to.
Right. Someone who shares your values and who won't judge you for your doubts or fears.
And it's more than just feeling comfortable, right? It's about trust.
Absolutely.
You need to trust their expertise and believe that they genuinely want to see you succeed.
Look for someone who has a proven track record in the area you're seeking guidance.
Okay.
So if you're trying to, grow your business, for example, find a coach who's successfully navigated those waters themselves.
Right. You want someone who walks the walk, not just talks the talk.
Exactly.
But beyond expertise, what else should we be looking for?
Well, communication is key.
Okay.
A good coach is a skilled listener and communicator. They can explain concepts, clearly ask insightful questions, and provide constructive feedback.
Yeah.
It's about finding someone who can challenge you to grow without making you feel demoralized.
It's that balance of support and challenge that I think really makes a difference.
Yeah.
You want a coach who can push you outside your comfort zone, but still make you feel safe and understood.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that coaching isn't a one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
A good coach will be able to adapt their style to your specific needs and learning preferences.
So once you've found a coach that you click with, how do you make the most of that relationship?
Honesty and transparency are key. The more open you are with your coach about your goals, your struggles, your fears, the better they can support you.
It's like any relationship, vulnerability is the foundation for deep connection and growth.
Exactly. And it's also about being a willing participant.
Okay.
Coaching isn't passive. You need to actively engage in the process, reflect on your experiences, and be open to trying new things.
It's a true partnership.
Yes.
Both the coach and the coachee are invested in that journey of growth and transformation. And this ties back beautifully to Grant's message about unlocking hidden potential.
It does.
He reminds us that we all have these unique talents and abilities just waiting to be discovered.
And coaching can be that catalyst that helps us unearth those hidden gems, to see ourselves in new ways and tap into possibilities we might not have even imagined.
It's like having someone there to shine a light on those hidden paths
Yeah.
to help us navigate those uncharted territories within ourselves.
And remember, it's not just about personal gain. As Grant emphasizes, when we unlock our own potential, we create a ripple effect that benefits everyone around us.
We bring more creativity, innovation, and compassion into the world. It's a beautiful reminder that our individual growth has the power to make a collective impact.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Adam Grant's hidden potential, think about this. What's one small step you can take today to move closer to your own hidden potential?
It could be starting that project you've been putting off, having that difficult conversation, or even just spending a few minutes journaling about your dreams and aspirations.
Remember, as Grant says, progress starts with a single step, and the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
So embrace the process, find the joy in the challenges, and never stop exploring the incredible landscape of your own hidden potential. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep